Okay, so let's get into it. You hear the name Laura Ingalls Wilder, and you probably think you know the story, right? Log cabins, prairie dresses, all that wholesome pioneer stuff. But the real story is so much crazier, and it all starts with a question that just sounds impossible. Now, seriously, just think about that for a second. How does someone who spent their entire life in hardship, a person who had already lived a full, incredibly difficult life, suddenly reinvent themselves and become a household name? To really get it, you have to understand the sheer scale of what she was up against.
And we're not talking about, a tough year or two. This was a lifetime of just barely getting by, of constant worry where every single harvest was a massive gamble.
I mean, we are talking about a relentless, non-stop series of setbacks, from natural disasters to personal tragedies, that, frankly, would have broken most people.
And then, at an age when most people are thinking about slowing down, about retirement, she picks up a pen. And not as some quaint little hobby, but out of pure, raw desperation. This is the moment where everything changes. And the wildest part? It works. Oh boy, does it work. She doesn't just write a book, she launches an entire empire. So how on earth did she get from the dirt of the prairie to the top of the bestseller list? To understand, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. Her childhood was not some cozy adventure. It was a constant, grueling fight for survival on the American frontier.
And this right here just shows you the chaos. The Ingalls family was always on the move, chasing that promise of a better life. But every single move was a huge risk, usually kicked off by failure, or just plain bad luck. From trying to settle on land in Kansas that wasn't even legally theirs, to just hoping the next crop would finally stick.
And life back then was just brutal. It wasn't just a little bad weather. In Minnesota, they were hit by a literal plague of locusts. She described the horrifying sound of millions of them just chewing through their entire wheat crop. They lost her baby brother, and because they were always moving, Laura barely went to a real school. And yet, despite all that, here's what's so amazing. She was so sharp that at just 15 years old, she passed the exam to become a teacher. Now this is key. This wasn't just about needing money. It was the first real sign of that fierce intelligence and grit that would carry her through everything. She was a survivor from the get-go. You'd think after a childhood like that, things could only look up, right? Wrong. For Laura, the absolute hardest years were still to come. Her early marriage to Ingalls Wilder was just one disaster after another. First, both she and Ingalls get diphtheria, and it's a terrible case. Laura pulls through, but a complication gives Ingalls a stroke, leaving him with a permanent limp. Their ability to run a farm was now seriously compromised.
The very next year, they face an absolutely unimaginable heartbreak. Their newborn son died when he was just 9 days old. His tiny gravestone just says, "Baby son of A.J. Wilder."
And if that wasn't enough, in that same horrible month, their farmhouse, their home, all their possessions, everything burned completely to the ground. They were left with absolutely nothing. Laura herself, looking back on this time, put it pretty simply in her diary. She felt like she'd hit rock bottom. It was a time of just complete and total despair. So, for decades, she and Ingalls just rebuilt. They eventually settled on a small farm in Missouri called Rocky Ridge. They were poor, but they were stable. And then, the world threw one last crisis at them. And this one, unexpectedly, would change everything. The stock market crash of 1929 just vaporized most of their life savings. So here they are, in their 60s, facing poverty all over again. And Laura is desperate to find a way to make money. This is so important. She didn't start writing for fame or for a legacy. She started writing to survive. So with her daughter, Rose, who was already a pretty famous writer, cheering her on, Laura started writing down all those stories from her childhood. And in 1932, at 65 years old, Little House in the Big Woods was published. Her second act had officially begun. Now, we have to talk about her daughter Rose's role here, because it was crucial. It was a real team effort. Laura brought the raw, authentic stories, the voice, the lived experience. Rose, with her professional writer's eye, helped shape and edit the manuscripts, and this is huge, used her connections to get her mom's book in front of the right people.
What happened next? Well, nobody could have predicted it. This book, written out of desperation by a 65-year-old farmer, didn't just sell a few copies. It exploded.
Her first book was an immediate hit, selling 100,000 copies. You have to remember, this was the middle of the Great Depression. America was starving for stories of resilience, of family, of survival, and Laura's books served up exactly that.
And this chart just says it all, doesn't it? She spent more than 40 years as a farmer, a life of endless struggle. And then she got a second career for 25 years as a world-famous author. It's just the ultimate reminder that it is truly never too late to start over.
The books, of course, led to the iconic TV show Little House on the Prairie. It ran for 9 seasons and basically cemented her family's story into the fabric of American culture for generations to come.
So why do these stories, written so long ago, still resonate with us so deeply today? I think Laura herself actually said it best.
She wrote this to a young fan. The real things haven't changed. See, the books aren't really about churning butter or building a log cabin. They're about courage when things get tough. They're about finding joy in the small things and about the incredible strength of family. Laura Ingalls Wilder's life is proof that sometimes our greatest struggles can become our greatest stories, and that your second act just might be the one that changes the world.